Hi, my name is Jihae, and for this workshop, we are presenting our proposal, The Body in Cross-Reality, a framework for selective augmented reality visualization of virtual objects. So, what is cross-reality interaction? It's an emerging field within human-computer interaction that investigates how users of different realities can interact with each other. These realities referring to the real environment, the virtual, and anywhere in between. However, for users of different realities to interact with each other, they must first be aware of each other, which involves both an expression and perception of information. We are interested in the cross-reality interaction between a VR user and an AR user, specifically how the VR user can express information through action and gestures, and how an AR user may perceive this information. The question then becomes how much and what type of information is relevant for clear and effective communication. Action and gestures inevitably involve the body. The AR user may be interested in what the VR user is seeing, how the VR user is interacting with the virtual environment, and where in the context of this virtual environment the VR user is going. Especially with the rise of mixed reality technologies, immersed users can interact with the virtual environment through increasingly more creative and complex means, creating an importance of understanding the body in relation to the virtual world. Thus, we propose a framework for selective augmented reality visualization of virtual objects to augment the external user's view of the VR user one-to-one scale with specific elements from the virtual environment. It's based on a simple concept where some objects in a virtual environment are visible to the AR user, whereas others are hidden. So, three criteria determine what is visible and what is hidden. Firstly, proximity threshold, which shows a radial distance of volume around the VR user to the AR user. Secondly, field of view, which shows a slice of what the VR user perceives to the AR user. And finally, importance ranking, which shows a selection of predetermined objects to show to the AR user depending on how relevant the object may be according to the scenario shown. And we can follow this framework through an example, such as food handling training between a VR trainee and an AR supervisor. Here we see a view from the real world with an immersed VR user and an external user who clearly has no idea what's happening. But the VR user can see the full extent of her virtual environment, perhaps the entirety of which may not be necessary to visualize to the AR user to communicate what she is currently doing. Thus, the framework looks at selectively augmenting virtual objects such as food items and equipment in front of her to the pink AR user. This looks at two criteria in our framework, proximity threshold, as well as the importance ranking. Another example, beyond food handling, could be exploring an architectural exhibition, in which case it may be relevant to select both the criteria field of view to show where the user is looking at and what she is interested in, as well as proximity threshold to limit the boundaries of information being visualized. So, what are our next steps? They would be implementing, experimenting, and evaluating the propositional framework across use cases. We would like to simulate a use case between an AR supervisor and a VR trainee, where we investigate the understanding of the AR user regarding the VR user's actions. We would also like to evaluate the usefulness of the proposed three criteria against each other, as well as baseline conditions, such as an external user that can see the VR user without AR, and a VR spectator that can see the entire VE without seeing the VR user. And finally, taking our first baby step forward, we have our mock-up for the second criteria, field of view, where only the virtual objects in front of the VR user are visualized to the AR user. So on screen, that's my colleague Robbe, who has worked on his proposal with me. And that concludes this presentation. Thank you for your time.